Welcome to this Carlsberg Foundation webinar. We are very happy that so many of you have tuned into this session. We are here to tell you about the autumn 2024 call for proposal, and we're transmitting live from our complex of researcher apartments in Carlsbergbyen, Copenhagen. We're looking very much forward to telling you about our call for proposals, about the different types of grants that you can apply for, and also about the tweaks and changes that we have made since last year, due not least to the valuable input that we have received from our applicants and from our grantees, that is, from you. My name is Lasse Horne-Kjeldgaard, and I'm the CEO of the Carlsberg Foundation. We are an old foundation, one of the oldest enterprise foundations in the world. We started back in 1876, founded by the brewer J.C. Jacobsen, who, when he died, left his brewery to the Carlsberg Foundation to support basic research. Jacobsen was immensely interested in science, driven both by curiosity, but also by a belief that science could provide a basis for taking beer brewing to new levels of perfection. In old age, Jacobsen wanted to give back to science. For that reason, he established the Carlsberg Laboratory in 1875, and the year after, the Carlsberg Foundation. That was his way of paying back on the debt of gratitude that he owed to science. The Carlsberg Foundation was born with a dual purpose: to maintain the committed and far-sighted ownership of the Carlsberg Brewery on the one side, and on the other side, to support basic research within all the main fields, within the natural sciences, within the social sciences, and within the natural sciences. Jacobsen he wanted to support science for its own sakes, but he also wanted that the values of science, the pursuit of perfection and the long-termism, to spill over to the organizational values of the company. For that reason, he wanted the board of the Carlsberg Foundation to be run by members elected by the Danish Royal Academy of Sciences and Letters. Here you see pictures of the present board members, and one of their important tasks is to make a final decision on the applications we receive from you. We expect to award grants this year to basic research amounting to 700 million kroner. That is twice the amount as what was awarded, almost twice the amount as what was awarded only 5 years ago. And this positive development is part of a general trend as foundations give more and more money both to science but also to other philanthropic purposes in Denmark. Here you see a chart of the largest foundation, and in terms of output, the Carlsberg Foundation is the third largest foundation in Denmark financing research. This is our way to carry out the wish of brewer J.C. Jacobsen, and we are very honored and privileged and pleased to do so. And now I'm very honored and pleased to give the word to my good colleague, Chief Scientific Officer Lars Egström Christensen, who will guide us through this autumn's call for proposals. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck with your applications.
Thank you very much, Lasse. As mentioned, I'm going to take you through some of the different types of grants that we have. We're already well into the welcome and introduction. After that, I'm going to take you through the different types of grants. We're going to go through some general news and updates to our different programs. After that, I'm going to zoom in and focus a little bit more on the Postdoctoral Fellowships before switching to the Semper Ardens programs. Then we're going to go to research infrastructure and to the Monograph Fellowships before I'm going to talk a little bit more detailed about the application process and the different assessments. Then I'm going to finish off with a bit of statistics for how we donate money and how we support research. Now, each of these different program elements I expect is going to take about 5 or 6 minutes each, so feel free to zoom in and out as you see fit. During the webinar, it will be possible to ask questions on a Padlet, and you see here a QR code which you can scan with your smart device, and there you'll be able to ask questions to us. No login is required. It is completely anonymous to ask these questions. It will also be possible to vote for questions already asked, And that means that if somebody else has already asked the question that you would like to ask, you can upvote it. And that way, we at the end can go through some of the highest voted questions. Now, of course, I expect there's going to be a whole lot of questions from you guys, and I do not expect that we'll be able to go through all of them during the webinar. Instead, what we recommend is that you might first, if we do not manage to answer your question, you might first get a hold of your local research support unit, and if they do not have the answer to your question, you can get a hold of us. And I'm also going to provide some contact information towards the end. Now, both here and in general, we're not going to be able to provide advice or answer questions relating to specific projects or specific project ideas. That is simply not possible for us. But other than that, we really hope that you will take advantage of using the Padlet and ask all of your questions. I'm also going to put up the QR code towards the end of the webinar, but otherwise it might be a good idea to just scan the QR code now, follow the Padlet, see the questions that come in. Going right into it already, I see that first question has already been posed, and you can go in and you can ask questions and so on and so forth. And I also see that people are already happily judging, so to speak, these questions and giving them stars or not. So much for the Q&A part and so much for the introduction. Now let's go through the different types of grants that the Carlsberg Foundation offers. The different grants that we offer are all centered around the career path of academic staff. And that means starting at the top of the career ladder, so to speak, we have the Semper Ardens Advance program. This is a 5-year grant that is awarded to established professors, and this can be applied for either as a single PI or PI team, and I'm going to come back to what that exactly means a little bit later. It's offered this year, and it'll be offered again in 2026. Semper Ardens Accomplish is for the newly appointed professors, and this was offered last year and will again be offered next year. Then for the newly appointed associate professors, we have the Semper Ardens Accelerate grant, which is a 3 to 4 year grant, which is really aimed at newly appointed associate professors for consolidating their research group. As associate professor and full professor, it is also possible to apply for field trips or research stays going abroad for some time, either on a field trip or a research stay at a different host institution. And it is possible to apply for our 2 research infrastructure grants. Again, I'm going to come back in more detail and talk a little bit about the infrastructure grants later. Finally, it is also possible to apply for the Monograph Fellowships, which is for established professors within the humanities and the social sciences for producing a monograph. Now, moving down the career ladder a little bit, we have 3 different types of postdoc grants. We have the Internationalization Fellowship, which is aimed at excellent young researchers who want to go abroad for a couple of years to pursue their own research ideas, their own independent research ideas. And then we have the Reintegration Fellowships aimed at young postdocs who are already abroad, but who want to come back to Denmark and take their experience and their newly acquired skills back to Denmark. And then every other year we offer postdoc fellowships at the Danish Institute at Athens and the Danish Institute in Rome. As a postdoc and above, you're also eligible to apply for conference support for conferences hosted primarily in Denmark and publication of your research results. Now, the Carlsberg Foundation does not directly offer support to PhD students, but we do so indirectly through the Semper Ardens grants. The Semper Ardens grants are primarily used for funding exactly PhD students and postdocs working on the research proposed by the PI. Apart from these specific research projects, we also have 2 types of grants aimed at communicating basic research. The first is the Carlsberg Minilegat, which is aimed at researchers who want to team up with professional communicators and really try to get their research known widely to a broader audience, to the general public. Now, the next deadline for this call is already in a few days, September 1st, 2024, but it is offered every 6 months. So the next deadline will be March 1st, 2025. Here it's possible to apply for up to 200,000 kroner for a 2-year period. We also have science communication, which is more aimed at the professional communicators who want to team up with researchers, again, to get information about basic research and knowledge about basic research out to a broader audience and out to the general public. Again, the deadline for the next round is already in a few days, but this program is also offered every 6 months. So the coming deadline for that after in a few days is going to be March 1st, 2025. Here it's possible to apply for up to 3 million kroner and for projects that last up to 3 years. Finally, I just want to provide a little bit of an overview of the different application rounds for the different types of grants for the ordinary calls. So this is for the spring program where we offer 3 different postdoc fellowship programs. And then for the fall call, autumn call, which we're approaching in about a month's time, where we have the Semper Ardens programs, we have the Monograph Fellowships, field trips, infrastructure, and again, also a couple of postdoctoral fellowship programs. Apart from that, we have the 3 types of grants that can be applied for continuously, so there's no deadline, and that's field trips and research stays under 100,000 kroner, publication of research results, and conferences. Now, we're often asked because, according to the charter of the foundation, the research that we support has to have a strong connection to Denmark and to Danish research. But what does that actually mean? What it means is that you can, for example, hold a degree from a Danish research institution, for example, from a university, and then subsequently have been employed at a Danish research institution, either the same one or a different one. But that also means it's not enough just to hold a degree from a Danish research institution. A little bit extra is needed in order to have this strong connection to Danish research. But it's also possible that you may have personal or family relations and in that manner be strongly connected to Danish research. Finally, it's also possible that you have so strong and demonstrated ties to Danish research that even if you go abroad, for example, on an internationalization fellowship, there's a strong likelihood that you're going to return to Denmark. And that is important because even though we send out postdoctoral fellows abroad, ideally we would also like them to come back to Denmark with the experience and with the knowledge that they have gained abroad. Now, of course, these examples here are not exhaustive, and ultimately it is up to the board of the foundation to decide whether a connection is deemed strong enough or not. Similarly, according to the charter, we support basic research. And the question, of course, is, well, what does basic research mean? And what we interpret it to mean is that the research is curiosity-driven experimental or theoretical work undertaken primarily to acquire new knowledge of the underlying foundations of phenomena and observable facts. And this way, the research should analyze properties and structures and relationships with a view towards formulating and testing hypotheses, theories, or laws. And apart from supporting the basic research directly through research grants, as mentioned, we also provide support for communicating basic research results to a broader audience. Again, as before, with the strong connection to Danish research, it is ultimately up to the board to assess and to decide in each case whether a proposed project falls into the basic research category. So much for the types of grants and the overview of the grants that we are offering. I would now like to take you through some of the general news that we have this year. I should say that when we go out and when we make updates to our different types of grants and our funding schemes and so on, That most often happens because what we would really like to do at the end of the day is to streamline the workflow for you as researchers, make it as easy and as straightforward as possible to propose for and to achieve funding from us, both in terms of applying, but also in terms of managing grants directly. So this means that we go into dialogue with you, the applicants, but also grant holders and different Danish research institutions in order to adjust the different grant types that we offer, such that we can really accommodate what is happening in the research landscape in Denmark on a continuous basis. One of the direct results of that is that we've recently updated our website, and one of the goals of that has really been that we would like to make the information more easily accessible to, for example, the applicants. And that means that if you go to the top of the page, as shown here, there is the applicant menu. And if you go to that, you're going to find all of the relevant information for applicants. Similarly, if you're a grant holder, right next to the applicant, there is the grant holder menu, where all of the relevant information should be available for grant holders. One of the more important recent developments that have happened is that Danish universities have entered into an agreement with the 5 largest research supporting foundations, private foundations in Denmark, in order to cover some of the indirect costs that are associated with research projects carried out at Danish research institutions. Specifically, what that means for us is that the following grants may be eligible for the project supplement. That includes the reintegration fellowships, the digital research infrastructure if you're applying for funds for a salary, and the 3 Semper Ardens types of grants, the Semper Ardens Accelerate, Accomplish, and Advance. We have a new budget template, which I'll also come back to in a few slides' time, which automatically includes the project salary if you are applying from an institution that is included in the agreement on the project supplement. I should also specify here, just for good measure, that the Monograph Fellowships are not included in the agreement on the project supplement. Other news is that perhaps one of the most important ones is also a relatively small one, but that is that the application deadline has moved so that although it is still October 1st, as usual, it is at 4 p.m. Copenhagen time. It is not at midnight Copenhagen time as previously, but at 4 p.m. So make sure that your calendars are updated, your reminders are set for that. Second, if you are applying as an associate professor or a full professor, we have updated the format for the list of publications. Now, the list of publications should first include a small summary of your bibliometry, including a link to a bibliometric profile, for example, Google Scholar, Web of Science, or any such profile. It doesn't matter which one. Next, the list of publications should just include the 10 publications that are most relevant. And this can be relevant either directly to this application, to the proposed research project, or it can be publications that have been relevant to your career as an applicant. We have no guidelines for the balance between the two, but we have a guideline that says that the publication list must be a maximum of 10 pages. I should also add that you should add a few sentences regarding the relevance of each of these 10 publications. Finally, as already alluded to, we have a new budget template which automatically includes the project supplement. We have extensively tested this new budget template also with the help of our colleagues in the different research support units at the Danish universities, and we have tested it from Excel 2016 and later. However, we only provide support for the latest versions of Excel. One little detail, I'll come back to that on the next slide, also is that what we want for the application is the so-called finalized budget. So we really need the finalized budget, and I'll show you in just a second how to get to that. So if we start by looking at the budget template, you start out at the start page, not surprisingly. And here it is important to first select the grant type. If you go directly to one of the tabs with the grant type that you're interested in, you're just going to be met with a gray screen and you won't be able to fill in anything. You need to first select the grant type from the drop-down menu, and then once that's done, you need to go to the next step, number 2, and follow that hyperlink to the relevant tab. In my case, let's say I want to apply for Semper Ardens Accelerate. I choose Semper Ardens Accelerate and I click Go to that budget. And that takes me to the tab where I can then fill out all of the relevant information, for example, name of applicant and host institution and so on and so forth. The actual budget part is split into 2. So the top part is for the salary costs that are being applied for, and the lower part is for operational costs. In my case, let's say I would like to apply for funding for a PhD student and a postdoc, and I would like to apply for funding for 3 years for each of them. What I do is I start out in the left column, choose the job title, in this case PhD, and I choose the host institution. In this case, I have chosen University of Copenhagen. And if you choose one of the host institutions that are included in the agreement on project supplement, you will be able to select the main research area for which this, in this case, PhD student will be employed. I chose natural science. This is what is used for calculating the project supplement, and in this case, this will give rise to the wet project supplement. And then I fill out how many FTEs this particular PhD student is employed per calendar year, and I fill in the salary cost. The project supplement is added automatically. Next, I would like to hire a postdoc. This postdoc should be split 50% between the University of Copenhagen and 50% between a research institution that is not part of the project supplement agreement. In this case, since I've chosen another Danish research institution, I cannot choose the main research area, and there will be no project supplement added. Other than that, I just make sure, since I want a 50-50 employment, that the total adds up to 1.5 FTEs for the University of Copenhagen in this case, and 1.5 FTEs for the other research institution in this case. And then I fill out the salary information. Next, you can fill out the operational costs. In this case, I would like to apply for tuition fee for the PhD student, and I would like to apply for some travel funds. And that's then filled out in this in the budget template. And once I'm done with all of that, and I've also filled out my name and so on, I can go to finalized budget in the top right corner. And again, as mentioned, it is important to go to the finalized budget, click that button, and it will take you to the actual finalized budget. This finalized budget has removed all of the superfluous lines so that they're not visible, and it adjusts everything so that it looks nice. And then from here, it's possible to print to PDF and attach it to the application. Of course, you can go back to the budget and make changes as you see fit, but what we need for the application is this finalized budget. I should say, as mentioned already, we have really tried to be thorough in testing this template, but we're also fairly sure that there might be bugs, as there always are, so we strongly recommend that you start working on the budget early in the process. As mentioned, we can provide support for the latest versions of Excel, but of course, if you need our help, say at 1 p.m. on October 1st, it might be a little bit challenging, whereas if you're asking for help on September 1st, we're going to have a bit more time to help you. So start early. The other thing that I would like to mention with respect to the information that we provide is that almost all of our assessment criteria have been updated, and they have been made specific to the different types of grants that we're offering. All of this is available on the website, so if you go in and look at the page for a specific type of grant, you can scroll to almost to the bottom of the page, and you will see both the assessment criteria and also the processing procedures. We're of course doing this to make it as transparent as possible for you, the applicants, so that you know how we are evaluating and assessing your proposals. We have also updated the frequently asked questions sections for almost all types of grants. They are available also on the different grant type pages. Again, you may have to scroll a little bit, but it's there. It contains a lot of relevant information, and I strongly recommend looking at the frequently asked questions first before getting in touch with either your local research support unit or with us. Switching to the postdoc fellowships and going a little bit more in depth with the different fellowship types of grants. We first have the Internationalization Fellowship. Now, this is a prestigious fellowship that are really aimed at talented young researchers who want to go abroad for up to 2 years, it can be 1 or 2 years, to pursue their own independent research ideas and who need to go abroad to really develop their research profile. We provide full independence such that you can pursue your own research goals. And you can do that at either 1 or 2 international research institutions. It's up to you and up to what your research requires for this particular project. At the time of application, it is not necessary anymore to have obtained your PhD. If you have not obtained your PhD, you must attach a letter from your supervisor that justifies that you will very likely have obtained your PhD before the start of the grant period. If you have obtained your PhD already, this must be stated, the date must be stated in the application and also in the CV. And of course, we fully expect that any successful grant holders take up residence in the country where the research is supposed to be carried out. The grants are awarded as tax-free payments to the grant holder. And we're doing this to really ensure that the grant holder gets full financial control over their own project. Now, of course, when you're getting such a relatively large sum of money, there may be tax issues and so on. And to help you navigate in this landscape, we offer a session with PricewaterhouseCoopers to help with any tax-related questions and issues that you may encounter in this process. Of course, should you be successful with your application. Apart from the Internationalization Fellowship, we would also very much like to see that all of the young talented researchers that have been abroad for a number of years, that they come back to Denmark and bring back the skills and the expertise that they have taken up abroad. And for that, we offer the Reintegration Fellowship. This consists of salary, and they are eligible for project supplement. And then we have recently increased the monthly operational costs from 5,000 to 8,000 kroner. These 8,000 kroner are added automatically in the budget template, so you do not need to add them yourself. It is not a requirement as an applicant that you have been funded by Carlsberg Internationalization Fellowship previously. You can also have been funded by other means. However, it is of course required here that you do describe the strong connection that you have to Denmark and to Danish research, as also explained previously in the webinar, and which is also available on the FAQ. Common to both grants is that there are limitations for when you can apply with respect to when you got your PhD. Now, we of course know that many of you are young and are in the process of starting families and so on, and will either be or have been on parental leave. And you can of course subtract that when you calculate your PhD age. And you can do that by multiplying the parental leave with a factor of 2. That means that if you have been on parental leave for 6 months, you can deduct 12 months in total when calculating your PhD age. For the list of publications for postdocs, these must include all of your publications, and that includes submitted, accepted, and actually published publications. Now, some of you may not have any publications, and that's okay, but you must still upload a list of publications. In this case, the list of publications must simply state that there are no peer-reviewed publications. Finally, what we would like to do is also, if you are awarded a grant, is we want to bring all of you together, and we do that at our annual Postdoc Day, which takes place 1 week before Easter and takes place in Denmark, in Copenhagen. This day is really a big mix of career-oriented talks, workshops, and so on and so forth. But we also put a lot of emphasis on the opportunity for networking and for sharing experiences with each other. The picture that you see here is from the most recent postdoc day, which was just 6 months ago. Okay, enough about the postdoctoral fellowships. Moving on to Semper Ardens. So the Semper Ardens types of grants are really the flagship grants. Semper Ardens means always burning, in the sense of always being passionate about the research that we're doing, and we're offering these grants really to internationally recognized tenured associate and full professors with the aim that they can carry out world-leading research. We have made a few changes to this, most importantly perhaps the amounts that you can apply for, where for Accelerate you can now apply for up to 7 million kroner, including the project supplement. Accomplish next year will be 10 to 13 million, and Advance will be 15 to 25 million. These amounts have been updated, both because of inflation that has increased prices and salaries, but also of course because of the agreement on project supplement. As part of this, it is also no longer possible to apply for 3 months salary for the PI. The way in which these applications are assessed is that they are sent into external peer review. At the Carlsberg Foundation, we really emphasize short processing time of applications, meaning that the amount of time from when you submit an application until you get notification about either grant or rejection is about 2.5 months at most. This means that we do not have the resources to go out and handpick external peer reviewers that are specifically suited as experts for your particular application. All of the external peer reviewers have already been selected, but that also means that they are generalists more than they are specialists for your specific application. So keep that in mind when you're writing your application. I should of course also say that ultimately it is up to the board to assess the applications, which means that, if nothing else, these applications should also be accessible to the board and understandable by the board. The external reviewers are all anonymous and their assessments are treated in confidentiality, so we do not provide their assessment reports or their feedback to applicants in any form. And finally, all of the assessment criteria of both the board and the external peer reviewers are available on the Foundation website, and we of course recommend that you take a look at the assessment criteria and make sure that you address them in your application. For Semper Ardens Accelerate, we've made a few little updates. First of all, the project description is now 3 pages, whereas before it was 2 pages. And the grant period has been extended such that you can apply either for a 3 or 4-year project, where previously it was limited to 3 years. We have also introduced the concept of career grants because, as in previous years, we expect that any grant holder should devote at least 50% of their research time to the Semper Ardens Accelerate project. And what this means specifically is we do not deem it possible to receive this grant if an applicant is at the start of another career grant. Career grants may include things as the DFF Semper Ardens, an ERC starting or consolidator grant, or such like. If you're in the second half of your other career grant, you may be eligible, but in that case you need to provide an accounting on how you actually want to spend the time between the 2 different projects. During the application process, you will be asked to inform us if you have already submitted other grants for other foundations, and if you receive a career grant before the start of your grant period with us. Again, you must inform us, and you will be asked to choose. For Semper Ardens Advance, it is possible to apply either as a single applicant or as a team of applicants. For the single applicant, the single PI, again, the expectation is that the researcher allocates at least 50% of their research time to the project, but otherwise it's business as usual. We have this year opened up for teams of applicants applying for the Semper Ardens Advanced Grants, where the team can consist of 2 to 4 equal PIs. And it is important to notice that this is 2 to 4 equal PIs, scientifically speaking. This should not be one PI with 1 to 3 team members. The idea really is that there is a PI team behind the application. We still need one person to be responsible with respect to us. That means one person that pushes the button and one person that serves as the contact point. But this is purely for administrative reasons and with respect to us. This is not the scientific part. The main applicant, that is the person who pushes the button, must be a full professor, but the rest of the team can be either associate professors or professors employed at Danish research institutions. Again, we expect that the team allocates 50% of their research time to the project. And what that means is actually up to you to define, and it must be specified in your research group description. Here, the time allocation must be justified between the different team members, as well as the team structure and the group structure and the leadership structure of your team and of your proposed group. This needs to be addressed. For the Semper Ardens Advanced Grants, there will first be a round of shortlisted interviews, and the shortlisted applicants will be invited for interviews on Friday, November 29th. There's only 1 week of warning because the interviews will take place on Thursday, December 5th and Friday, December 6th at the Carlsberg Foundation in Copenhagen. All of the interviews will be held in person with no exceptions, and the interview language is English. For team applications, we expect that the entire team shows up at the interview. Okay, so much for Semper Ardens. Now let's move on to research infrastructure and Monograph Fellowships. What is new this year is that we have taken the old research infrastructure grant and split it up to 2. We still have a research infrastructure grant, which is now solely for the purpose of buying equipment and apparatus. You cannot apply for salary here. The minimum amount that can be applied for is 300,000 kroner with no maximum, but it might be a good idea to see what we have previously funded to get an idea of whether there is a de facto maximum or not. For this type of grant, we want to see formal quotes for equipment, and email correspondence is not sufficient. We have a new funding instrument, a new type of grant, digital research infrastructure, which has been split off of the research infrastructure. And here the purpose is to purchase register data, establish databases and text corpora and so on within the humanities and social sciences. Here it is possible to apply for funds for a salary for a research assistant up to 12 months, but the assistant must have at least a master's degree. And in this case, the research assistant will be eligible for project supplement. Again, there's a minimum amount of 300,000 kroners with no maximum, and quotes must also be formal as for the regular research infrastructure. When you're applying for research infrastructure, it is possible to attach letters of support. These letters must include an explanation why you, as a supporter of this application, support the application, and also how you intend to use this infrastructure should the application be successful. As a supporter, it is possible to support as many applications as you like. There's no limit on that part, but the letters of support must include the total number of other applications which you support. A housing commitment from the host institution is no longer required. For the Monograph Fellowships, here we are aiming these at top-level researchers who really wish to devote a year to writing a monograph within the humanities and social sciences or interdisciplinary fields that can branch into the natural sciences. You must be a tenured associate professor or higher, and you can only have had tenure between 5 and 20 years. And that includes any periods of tenure held abroad. The exact date of tenure must be clearly stated in the application and also in the CV. We have increased the amount for operating expenses from 5,000 to 8,000 kroner, as for the reintegration fellowship, and also as for the reintegration fellowship, this amount is automatically added in the budget. This is from a philosophy of we expect you to want to apply for this, and if you have not, it is probably because you have forgotten. So we might as well add it automatically. We have a new assessment procedure for the Monograph Fellowships. They are first assessed by a panel of external reviewers, and after that, they make a recommendation to the board, and it is up to the board to make the final decision on which applications to grant. This is, of course, based on the reviews from the assessment panel. Speaking of assessment, let's move to the more details about the application process and the assessment. The application process starts in CF Grant, our application system, our application portal. Here we have a strong recommendation, and that is that you upload your applications well before the deadline. You can even go in, you can upload it right now. You can also submit it right now, even if it is incomplete, because it can be edited and it can be resubmitted as many times as you like, up to the application deadline. So start the process early. Common to all of the applications is that you must have a project description, you must have a budget in our budget template. Again, I remind you, it must be the finalized budget. There must be a CV and publication list where the CV should not include picture or home address or other personal information, and then other documents specific to the funding instrument. Here, it is up to the applicant to really check which documents are required for each type of grant. They may vary between the different types of grants. Once you have uploaded everything, you have submitted your application, you will receive an email notification with a link to an auto-generated PDF. It is your responsibility to check the auto-generated PDF, check that it contains all of the documents, check that it is legible, and so on and so forth. Of course, you must follow the application guidelines, and if you do not follow the application guidelines, you may face administrative rejection, and that means that the application will not go to the board for assessment because the application does not live up to the requirements. Again, it is your responsibility to check that it lives up to the requirements. Once we have received all of the applications on October 1st, we start by processing all of the applications in the Secretariat. That means we go through, we check each and every application to make sure that it lives up to the requirements. If not, it may face administrative rejection. For Semper Ardens and Monograph applications, they go to external review first, and then they are assessed by the board. For Semper Ardens Advanced, there's also the interview stage before we go to either a grant or a rejection letter. For the other applications, they're only assessed by the board, and the board makes the decision of whether to grant the application or not. As for the preliminary processing, one of the most common causes that we see for administrative rejection is really missing appendices or missing documents. Make sure that everything is uploaded. We at the Carlsberg Foundation prioritize a short processing time, and that means that you will get notified of your application, the result of your application by mid-December, and that means that we do not have time to go out and chase missing documents or anything else. So please check that everything is uploaded correctly and that the auto-generated PDF is legible. And again, the sooner that you do that, if there are any problems or any issues, the easier it will be for us to help, should it be required. Now, I just want to give a little bit of statistics about how we actually donate money. So here I'm just showing the grants per main research area over the last 4 years, so within humanities, natural sciences, and social sciences. Well, I'm guessing that one of the things that you might be more interested in is seeing how many applications do we actually receive and how many grants do we give out. So this here is the statistics for 2023. So I just want you to keep in mind that 2023 we offered Semper Ardens Accomplish and not Semper Ardens Advance. So for this particular type of grant, of course, the statistics may look different this year. What you see is we received by far most applications for research infrastructure, which this year has been split up into research infrastructure and digital research infrastructure, Semper Ardens Accelerate, conferences, and Semper Ardens Accomplish. Now, if you take the number of applications that we have received, if you take the number of grants that we have granted divided by the number of applications we have received, you will of course get a success rate, and that is shown here. One thing that might be striking to many of you is that apart from Semper Ardens Accelerate and Semper Ardens Accomplish, all of our success rates are above 25%. So that means there is actually a fairly high chance of receiving a grant from us. Semper Ardens Accelerate and Accomplish had success rates of the order of 15%, so they're fairly low. But at the same time, I should also add that together, those two types of grants make up about 300 million kroner, so they make up about half of the total budget that we awarded for basic research last year. Now, I just have a few general recommendations before moving forward, and that is something that I've already said, but which cannot be said often enough. Start your application well in advance. As mentioned, we have a new budget template, and although we have tested it extensively and we have also made use of research support units and others to help us test it, there still may be unforeseen issues that we have not encountered yet. The sooner you start using it, the easier it will be for us to help you. Again, October 1st, 1 p.m., it might be a little bit difficult for us to help you. You can submit an application as many times as you like, and you can edit the application and you can upload new documents and so on and so forth until the application deadline. We will take whatever has been submitted on October 1st, 4 p.m. So that means that if you at 3:55, for example, upload a new document, but you do not push the submit button by 4 p.m., we might not see it. So again, being in good time is worth a while, I would say. It is the responsibility of you, the applicant, to verify that the application complies with all requirements. As I stated before, we at the Carlsberg Foundation really prioritize a short processing time, and that means that it will not be possible to attach appendices after the application deadline. If there are missing appendices, the application might receive an administrative rejection. And unfortunately, that's how it is. We of course also note that the use of AI and large language models is becoming ever more prevalent. And it is possible, you are allowed limited use of AI and these large language models to help you write your grant application. However, it is of course you, the applicant, who is fully responsible for any content and any text in your application. We know that AI may produce inaccurate or even wrong results and text, and it is up to you to make sure that whatever is in the application is correct. Now, we also realize, of course, that it is an area which develops very fast, so we follow this development, and we're going to update our policies accordingly, should it be necessary. As I mentioned, if we have not successfully answered your questions here, you can contact us. We strongly recommend that you contact your local research support units and your local department first. They may also be able to provide a lot of help and a lot of assistance. If they cannot, feel free to contact us both through our website or email, or you can follow us on social media, and you can also subscribe to our newsletters. Okay, so much for the presentation and for the actual contents of the webinar. Now, while I've been standing here and talking, I have not been able to see and follow the questions that you may have asked. And if you've forgotten to log in and follow the Padlet, you may be able to scan the QR code again here and go in and see. And I'm now going to take some of the questions and hopefully, to the best of my abilities, be able to answer many of them. So let's take a look. So the first one, that is a good one. Will the presentation or slides be available after the webinar? Yes, they will. So we expect to upload the presentation to the Foundation website, hopefully tomorrow, although maybe a little patience, maybe it will be Friday. But we will upload the presentation. I should also specify that all of the information that I've provided here is really available also on our website, on the different pages for the different grant types and so on and so forth. As for clinical research on natural sciences, whether this includes health, medical, clinical research, I would strongly recommend going to the definition of basic research. So it is possible for us, and we have supported health sciences in the past, but please take a look both at the definition on our website, but also have a look through what we have previously supported. That can give you an idea of whether your research project may be eligible or not. I should specify, of course, again, that we cannot go in, we cannot provide advice, and we cannot provide an assessment of whether your particular research project falls into the category of basic research or not. Unfortunately, that is not possible. I see that the next question is Semper Ardens Accelerate, if it is possible to have named postdocs, PhDs, or research assistants. Yes, that is possible. The way to do it is that in the budget template, you first select the title, the job category, so that can be PhD or postdoc, and then there's space where you can write the name of the candidate right after. We do not ask for CVs or anything like that. We're not gonna assess whether the postdoc or the PhD is the best person to work on your research project or not. We expect that you, the applicant, the researcher, will make that choice yourself. And we also believe that you are much better qualified in making that choice than we are. In the meantime, bibliometric profiles jumped up a little bit. And whether I can elaborate on the background for new general requirement for providing a link, and also a question about humanities and parts of the social sciences, display for good reasons different practices regarding publication and bibliometry than science, and that bibliometric profiles rarely represent the quality and impact of a humanities scholar. That might be true, and I should say that of course we evaluate the entire application and the entire proposal. The publication list is a part of that, is of course a part of that evaluation. But it is something that is interesting to us, because what we would really like to see is if we have people who have, say, hundreds of publications and they provide all of those publications for us in a list of publications, well, what that mostly tells us is that this person has published a lot. And again, that doesn't actually say anything about the quality, as is also raised by the person who asked the question. Instead, what we really like is just take the 10 most relevant publications. Again, this can be something relevant to the specific project, or it could be relevant to the career, and then provide a few sentences of why is that particular publication relevant? Why is it so important that you want to make sure that the board and the assessors know that this publication exists? All right, project supplement and scientific fields. What determines whether the project supplement is set at 200,000 or 250,000 per FTE? Institutional affiliation or actual scientific content? Here, I'm actually going to refer directly to the agreement between the Danish universities and the private research funding foundations. And if I remember well, it says that it is the institutional affiliation, but please check the agreement to be absolutely sure. It is stated clearly in the agreement text how it is defined. So double check that to make absolutely sure. In the call for proposals on the different pages for the different grant types, we provide a link to the agreement text. So it should be fairly easy and fairly straightforward to call it up. Digital research infrastructure, if it can be applied for purchase of software and or software licenses. Here I must admit, I'm a little bit unsure, to be honest. So I prefer if whoever asked this actually email us at cfgrant@carlsbergfoundation.dk, and then we'll get back. And I see that there are 4 people who have judged this question very positively, so feel free to send an email with the same question. Statistics, KU bias. If we're positively biased towards KU, no, absolutely not. We are positively biased towards the best research and the best research ideas. That is what it comes down to for us. And this is also what we use in the assessment criteria and so on. Now, the final question that I'm going to take is, if we ask for 7 million kroner and accelerate, can we still ask for 3 years instead of the extended 4 years? Yes, you can absolutely do so. It is up to you, and it's up to what your research project requires. It is not such that if you apply for a 3-year project, you can only use, say, 5 million kroner, and if you apply for 4 years, you can apply for 7 million. No, you can apply for up to 7 million kroner, and that is irrespective of whether you choose a 3 or 4-year project. All right, I'm afraid that is all that we have time for in terms of the questions, but I would really like to thank all of you, both for tuning into the webinar, to listening to this, to asking excellent questions, and I'm sorry that I'm not able to go through all of them, but as mentioned, if you have questions, get in touch with your local research support unit. If they do not have the answer, feel free to contact us. All right. With that, all I want to say is we're really looking forward to receiving many excellent applications from you and seeing the excellent research that you're proposing for. And as Lasse said, good luck with your applications. Thank you.